Hi, everyone, and welcome to New Earth Podcast. I'm delighted to have with me the lovely Gayle Nowak today, and we're going to be talking about accessing New Earth through the heart. Welcome, Gayle. Would you like to start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your story before we get into the topic today?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Sarah. I'm really excited to be here and congratulations on this podcast. I love that it's called the New Earth Podcast. And yeah, so I am a transformational visibility coach, retreat leader, and speaker. And I work with New Earth leaders, really helping them transform the way that they communicate with their audience and really stand strong in their truth. Um, and and really touch back in with who they truly are as a soul. So many of us, from whether it's from our upbringing or our social conditioning or culture, religion, what have you, we take on a lot of programming and masks. And um, I feel like part of the ascension process is really sort of unbecoming those things. And it's really interesting. I know for me personally, my business has been a catalyst to sort of bring awareness to that for me, and the functions of marketing and visibility and sales can really kind of trigger a lot of that. So I work with my clients to help them be seen and heard in the world and help them really speak up and claim space and um, get their work out in the world so that they can make impact. I work with a lot of healers and coaches and transformational leaders. And sometimes we get in our own way when our own stuff comes up, our own wounding comes up, and business. I find that for me, like business and relationship has really been catalysts and mirrors of how we really can go within and learn who we truly are if we choose to take that path. So I do that work with clients privately through private coaching, and I also do it in workshops and intimate retreats.
That sounds amazing. There's so much I could pick up on there. I'm going to start with what you talked about, this idea of unbecoming, because for me that is very much, I feel, the journey that we're on, as a collective at the moment, because part of the stepping into new earth is that stepping into the unknown, kind of stepping into aspects, like we've all had such conditioning that it becomes a part of who we are, and we can't even see it, because it's often collective, it's in the collective, it's just the way things are done. But stepping into new earth is really about that, kind of re-examining that and re-looking at how perhaps we might do things differently, on so many levels. Is that something you'd like to talk a little bit more about?
Sure. I love talking about this. Yeah. So I would say that I'm feeling into what you're specifically speaking about with the collective. And it's interesting. This is something that I'm noticing in the energy, that there's more coming through now. And my interpretation is that there's enough of us who are doing our inner work and working on our own personal pieces, that now, and I don't know if this is true for you as well, Sarah, but it does. I'm noticing shifts in conversations that I'm having with other light workers and other healers and people who are doing this work, collective themes. And it feels like those collective themes are coming forward. I mean, even if we just look at our world today, right? Like we're seeing that those social themes, those collective themes coming up, and it can be chaotic, and it's not all unicorns and you know sparkly fairy dust and everything, but part of that really is being able to sit with all of it and be able to be with it, to be honest with ourselves, but be honest as a collective, like, ooh, okay, I see these things coming forward, and what's my piece of this, what's my responsibility in this, and really kind of I see it as a maturing process, like really kind of maturing emotionally from that shame and blame, and like, how can we move forward together from a healthier and healed place. So yeah, that's kind of,
That's
I'm feeling that
beautiful.
in the collective right now for sure.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I mean, it's, in terms of the shame and blame, often that's come, it's been handed down through the collective, through ancestral patterns as well. And what I'm finding personally, because I work with the group Creating New Earth, where we're working with all these different themes that you talk about. But I found that, it wasn't enough, that I needed to actually set up another group where we worked with ancestral, because so much of it is, perhaps not even from this lifetime, it's been passed down in the DNA, so we need to kind of be clearing it at that level. And another thing, just responding to things that you said, one of the things that I've become very aware of is this idea of, new earth is not something that we arrive at. This idea that, people say, what does new earth look like? And it's like, it's what we make it. It arrives through us. It's the shift in us, it's the inner work, the transformation, that will bring in the new earth. So with that, I was just kind of interested if that was a lead into our topic, accessing new earth through the heart, because obviously that is a big shift, because we've all been brought up in this world of, thinking things through logically with reason, perhaps more masculine sort of slant on things. And the idea of coming from the heart, it's coming from a different place when we meet the world. So I really loved your topic, accessing new earth through the heart, because it's just so key.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought up the ancestral healing too, because and the past life experience, it's kind of like this perfect storm right now of of really evolving and evolving from that inside out. I totally agree with you, is that it's not, we're definitely on a journey and new earth is not necessarily the destination. It's that journey. It's that journey. And yeah, so I for me, new earth really is all about living from the heart, supported by the mind, rather than the way that we've been living, like you spoke to, um, from the mind. Not that there's anything wrong with logic and analysis,
Sure.
and there's certainly a place for that, but really, from my perspective, the more I do this work, we're living from the mind to the detriment of the heart, where we're shutting it down. And it really takes me to a few years ago, where I began noticing this conversation that I was having internally, but I was also hearing it in conversations with other people along the lines of, hey, I have everything I want. Like, I have everything I said I wanted. I have the husband, I have the house, I have the business, the kids. Why aren't I happy? Why do I feel so empty? And I wasn't the only one saying this. Um, and it was really kind of like head scratching to me, like, what's going on here? Something's clearly out of alignment, because I have all the things, right? And once I began exploring that and got committed to feeling differently, like even moved out of that space of like, oh, this is just the way it is, I began to heal deeper layers of trauma and neglect from childhood, which interestingly were starting to come up for me when I started my business. And I was in a place of, oh, you know what, I've worked on that, I've dealt with that, like, we don't need to look at that, very much in that um trying to suppress it and avoid it place. And ultimately, you know those things in the shadows, they want to be seen, they want to be loved up, And so they persist. And I just started to see more and more clearly how guarding my heart, which served me at a time when I was younger, was now really preventing me from experiencing the connection and the alive life that I really was longing for. So I don't know if any of that
Yeah,
resonates
no,
with
that really
that
resonates.
experience.
I love what you say about the integration of head and heart, first of all. And for me, that is really key as well, because it's easy. It's easy to go the other extreme, isn't it? With these things, and we have lived in a patriarchal world, but for me it's not about rejecting the masculine. It's
Yeah.
about the integration. Like, we have the left and right hemispheres. The left is more about the masculine, the right is more about the feminine, the intuition. And it's about coming whole brained, so we can integrate that masculine and feminine within our brain, and then that's reflected in the body, and then anchoring that into the heart, so that we have that sort of masculine feminine integration. The heart has an association with being more feminine, the mind, the thinking, more masculine. So again, it's that balance and that integration. I love what you said about that. And I also really love this idea of how we reach the heart is through being honest with ourselves, being authentic, looking at our shadow, looking at those unseen parts of ourselves that do create an armoring, because it's with that we can, it's like it's peeling off the layers that enable us to reach our heart. Like you say, that's a journey. It's like, I'm still very much sort of I've been at it quite a few years, but the layers, they're still coming off. So it's kind of I think that's the journey, isn't it? It's not all about love and light and peace, and it's some of it's quite gritty, because it's about boundaries as well. It's like, to be authentic, we need to be authentically in our truth, and sometimes that means setting boundaries, and sometimes that can be uncomfortable. It's not necessarily all kind of love and light, that coming from the heart. So I don't know if that resonates at all for you.
Oh, it certainly does. It certainly does. Yeah. And boundaries is a big topic in my work, in my own inner work, but also in my work with clients as well. A lot of what I see with my clients, especially those of us who are like, we just are naturally compassionate, even if we're armored up a little bit, right? Like, many of the people that I work with are sensitive, are intuitive, are compassionate, and also, kind of on the shadow side of that, like, overgive. Myself included, I've been there. And so boundaries are so significant to not only um, being clear about what you're available for and what you're not available for in your life, but also in your business. You start to raise your profile, and that's going to attract in a lot of different energies. And it's really, some people will just stop themselves from raising their profile because they don't necessarily want to attract, haters or trolls or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, but when you have those boundaries and you have a plan of like, okay, this is what I'm about, and this is what I'm available for, and I'm not available for this over here, and I know the steps to take. It's like that kind of becomes, I don't want to say that becomes your armor, because it's not about like keeping the things out. It's about really feeling strong from within to be able to receive whatever comes to you and navigate that.
Yeah, well, for me, that resonates, in terms of that standing in our truth. That if we're coming from that, that authentic place, then a lot of that is letting go of a lot of the masks, like we've talked about, the conditioning, and some of that is people pleasing. Some of that is, a lot of work that I do with people. It's around beliefs such as, a lot of people hold the beliefs, particularly in the professions that we're in, is that it's better to give than receive. And actually, it's the integration again. We need both. We need the energy exchange. That's part of the thing. And for me, part of the moving into New Earth, it's about the authentic communication of navigating, because it might not always be that the exchange is monetary, it might be, but there needs to be that sense of this is a good exchange, coming from the heart. So that's about, where we meet and where our boundaries are and what's okay and what's not, for everybody. And in a way, this is a whole new conversation, because we've not been taught any of this, we've not. And it's like, how do we start to navigate these new conversations? Because it's easy to just go into the old model. But certainly some of the work that I'm doing with the People's Health Alliance, a lot of it is much more humanitarian. It's about really the vision of what we're putting into the world with the. I don't know if have you heard of the People's Health Alliance at all? Yeah. So I've been involved with the People's Health Alliance here in Portugal, and it's very much about believing in that vision. So the exchange is not necessarily monetary, but it's about this is worth my time, this is worth my energy. So I think there always has to be that sense of value, that sense of win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and I love that you brought up that balance piece too, right? Because there are a lot of messages out there about giving and not speaking to the receiving piece, or messages that are about like, don't be selfish, right? And well, what does that actually mean, right? What is that?
Yes.
And we have kind of this idea that means like, well, like, I have to just be completely available to everybody else and care for everybody else, but I come last, and that's not balanced, right? That's not healthy. It's not sustainable, really.
That's the thing.
Yeah. And then the other there was something else that you said. Oh gosh, and I just lost it, and I wanted to touch on
Don't worry. I can talk to that about the self-care, because it's coming back to that place of how we find the new earth is through ourselves, and filling our own cup first, and connecting with source, connecting with our heart, connecting with what's in alignment, and then saying no to those things that are not in alignment. So that it's through the self, it's through the self-care, it's through that kind of fine-tuning that to a degree that we find the connection to others. That's my belief. It's not. I think we've all been taught to sort of give ourselves away and kind of work long hours and all the rest of it. And I think it's a different journey. This journey, it's quite a creative process. It's quite creative, and it has to come from the self to the collective. It's not. That's the Aquarius energy. It's quite contrary. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, and whilst it's much more humanitarian and for the collective, it's through the individual. It's not groups of following gurus and things like that. It's self-empowerment. It's through that really embodying, this is my truth, and what can I, with this resonance, contribute to the collective, through standing in my kind of self-care and my boundaries.
Yeah, I love that you speak about it that way. And I think that some of the potency and the magic of that approach is you start to see, and I'm not saying this in kind of like a arrogant way, but you do start to see that when you're doing that work and you're shifting your own energy from within, it influences externally, and there's a lot less. I'm not saying you don't have to take action, or there isn't any effort, but there's a lot less that we have to do as individuals when we're in that, aligned with that source energy, instead of like trying to figure things out and make things happen. And we're in that flow, and it flows from us, and it influences the externals around us. And not only are we, you know, a model of that, but the energy does a lot of the work for us.
Yeah, and I mean that's why I think it's key to follow the heart, because then we're in the bliss, we're in that connection with ourselves, connection with spirit, and the power, the power of when we're in that alignment of following our path and letting that unfold. It's like we're really supported by the
Yeah.
universe. So like you say, it doesn't, whilst it comes through us, and it's important that we set the boundaries around where we're moving. It's kind of, it's not, it's almost like it's not me that's doing it. If just
Yes.
that's my sense. It's like it takes on another energy level. It's quite amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember what I was going to say before. And I know we keep using this word journey, but it is a journey. It's not, I think in our society, we can get really hooked into instant gratification, or it's like a one and done thing. And it's like, no, actually, it's a practice. It's a lifestyle. It gets messy. You make mistakes. And so you also have to come to that journey from a place of self-compassion, right? And sure, have standards for yourself and everything, but also it's really hitting that level of healing and compassion for yourself, where when you do kind of fall back into the old ways, it's like, oh, here I am again. Okay. Like we're just going to regroup and get back on course versus I know for me many years ago, like I would just beat myself up over that and then get stuck in that kind of energy. Right. And then that sort of influences the experiences around you, regardless of what energy you're in. So um, yeah, I just, it's, it's more than kind of the conversation that I think that we've been hearing about being heart-based and being giving and it's all of that and so much more.
Yeah, and I love what you said there, because for me, what that two things come up in relation to what you said. One is the humanness. Like I'm actually a really shy person, and I would never, if you'd asked me even a few years ago that I would be doing a podcast, I would think you were completely nuts. Um, and but for me, it's like I'm not trying to be perfect. I don't actually even know how to edit the videos or anything. It's like I haven't tried to do it like with a microphone and all that stuff. I'm just trying to be human.
Mm.
And sometimes I you catch yourself, and it's a journey, but it's like I want to appear as authentically as I can, and for me that's the journey of visibility. It's that humanness, but it's also that humility, the sense of, what, this is where I am now. I have done a lot of work on myself. I've done a lot of inner work. I've cleared all this, but I've still got a lot, I've still got plenty left. So it's kind of, that's all heart. It's the kind of okayness with where I'm at, and or the not okayness, if that's where I'm at as well.
Right.
Because we have moments of not okayness of what's going on, but then it's that kind of, okay, I'm not okay now with this or whatever. So it's kind of, for me, that's part of the journey. I don't know if that speaks with you at all.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was actually um, doing a workshop yesterday with clients who I know they're well in this journey. They're not strangers to transformation. They're not strangers to energy and healing. And that's the thing. It's like something they got new awarenesses about where they're at, and they're like, oh gosh, wow, and but it's in that space of like, well, it's curiosity. It's like, oh, interesting. So what's the impact of that versus like, wow, why haven't I figured this out yet? Which, and I love that you said whether you're okay or not okay, because there's a place for that too, of that frustration, and really just giving yourself the time and the space to feel whatever it is, that authentic feeling that's coming through, and noticing it and having the awareness about it and letting the feeling or the wave of emotion come through you, versus I think many of us have been taught to try to like push it away or ignore it or suppress it. And frankly, like that, I personally feel like that's part of what our challenge is as humanity at this time. Like this, that's part of what is distorted and unhealthy about our world right now.
Well, we've lived in the age of separation, and the only way that we can really come back to a sense of kind of unity consciousness, which is where we'll be heading, but it's a journey, is through that first, the connection with ourselves, with our authentic self, connection with our heart, and then through that connection to others, connection to the divine. So it starts to sort of spiral out, that connection, rather than like that, or just push it all away, or just push, this is all too much. So you then end up pushing other people away because it's just, oh
Right.
no, that's my trigger, that's what, so it's kind of constantly that sense of, separating self out
Yes.
because we haven't reached, it's like reclaiming all those different parts of ourselves, and acknowledging ourselves as part of the greater universe as well. So that sense of kind of oneness and connection, which sounds kind of a little bit kind of airy fairy, but it's actually very powerful if we've done the inner work. If we start to do the inner work, it's very powerful.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the separation too, because I do feel like this is our invitation to really um step deeper into faith and step deeper into trust, and to open our hearts and break through that separation and break through the lack and victim mentality. And I don't mean to minimize what it means to be a victim. And I also believe that we get the experiences that we get, not so that we can stay stuck in that, but to really leverage and alchemize those things, and come back into balance. And again, like I just feel like there's so much, there's been so much through the way that we've been living that we've kind of forgotten that. We've kind of forgotten that. And thank goodness for, I think about the coaches that I've worked with and the healers that I've worked with who were keen to this way longer than I have been. Thank goodness for those who are the leaders and who are courageous enough and brave enough to say, hey, this isn't what we were meant to be living like, to help others wake up to that and decide, yeah, actually, this path, this journey is really calling to me.
I
So
love
that
that.
we can
Sorry.
all collectively move to this place of oneness that you speak of.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you've mentioned this idea of trusting and stepping into the unknown and having courage, because it does take courage, particularly if there's a whole lifetime of like not looking, looking at our stuff. And that's what we're all being called to do, because if you think about lockdown, where we're just stuck at home, it's like the world, everyone, even people that haven't, awakened at all, must be feeling, something is up with our world, things are changing in our world. So for each of us is this sense of kind of stepping into the unknown, and how do we navigate that, because if we keep going back to the old ways of doing and being, it's going to become increasingly more difficult for people. So it's almost calling everybody into courage to step into the unknown, which it's kind of like a dark night of the soul in a way. And I certainly don't know about your experience, but that was in my 20s. I had two very significant losses, and that was my kind of journey of becoming comfortable in the uncomfortable place, because I had to, because there was no way round. I just had to sit in that uncomfortable place. I had to get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, that's many people have never had those kind of life transitions that shift the way of being. You know, I don't know if that's been a part of your journey. But often it is. You know, for in order to kind of make that shift, it's often a dark night of the soul. It's almost like we're doing that collectively at this time. I don't know if that resonates at all.
Oh boy, does it resonate? Yeah, I would say that I've probably had multiple dark nights of the soul. I was born into a dysfunctional and toxic and abusive family, and so talk about getting comfortable with being in uncomfortable places. That was a significant part of my childhood, and then in my 20s, because I experienced the trauma that I experienced, but then never got support for it. And there was lots of denial around it within myself and within the family. Um, it caught up with me, and I overdosed on pills and alcohol and ended up in the hospital, which was the best thing that could have happened to me at that time, as difficult as that was, because then I did start to receive help, and started to go to therapy, and for the first time was validated about my experiences. And it's so funny. I was just sharing this with a friend this week of really the power of someone just simply hearing your experience and finally hearing those words of like, actually, the way that you've been responding to this is completely normal. It's complete. There's nothing wrong with you. You need help, you need support, but you're not crazy. There's nothing, and that was just like, oh my gosh. And so for, maybe like a decade or so, like just being in that place of um, such pain and suffering and thinking that there was something wrong with me versus like, no, there's something wrong with this situation.
Well, that's the
Right.
thing, and I think, thank you so much for sharing your private story. I think, on a collective level, we are living in a toxic world at the moment. So I think, for viewers at home, it is normal that we would feel fear and anxiety and depression. With some of the things that have been going on. It's very triggering, and it is creating a catalyst. So it's kind of, I think it's totally inspirational for people, your story, of that kind of finding help and turning it around, because, certainly that was my personal journey as well. And that's often what the courage that we need to, reach out to acknowledge, it's that point of acknowledgement, isn't it? It's like, what? I need to find something that's going to help me to shift this and turn it around, because it's always possible. It's always possible to change our life experience. If not the physical experience, then the way we perceive that experience. So
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that kind of going back to the things we haven't been taught, like really the external work that I see is learning, like learning. It makes sense to me now, the things that I went through, why I had to go through them, and where, based on where I am now, right? Because I learned along the way that the skills of being able to sit with people in that pain, in that suffering, not necessarily get hooked into it. I mean, that was definitely a part of the journey of like, I would get hooked in, and that, because I'm empathic and intuitive, and tend to take on other people's energy. So I had to learn to work with my own energetic boundaries, um, but also to just learn kind of, they seem basic to me now, but a couple years ago, I didn't even know these things, right? But to be able to sit and just listen, be present, validate without necessarily, getting sucked into the story. Um, there's just, it sounds simple, but more of us need to be doing that to bring that healing along. And there's, like you said, like, it's a toxic society where we're like, oh, suck it up, don't be a snowflake, or whatever those more like, I don't want to deal with your stuff, that more of that separation, like pushing against it. Like, this is uncomfortable. I don't want to do that. I
Yes.
don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about how you work with people. Do you tend to work with individuals or groups? I know you've mentioned that you work with New Earth leaders, which I'm super excited about. And it's kind of one of the things that really attracted me. Like, wow, I've definitely got to have Gail on the podcast because I'm looking to interview New Earth leaders, but you're kind of like leading the leaders, so that's the next level.
Yeah, I do work with a lot of individuals. I do groups with individuals, and I, I have, in previous iterations of my career, I have worked within corporate with teams. So I have some experience with that, and I feel like that may be something that's on the horizon. Like, I get little nudges around that, but right now I'm focusing on entrepreneurs, individuals. So they could be individuals that lead corporate teams, or they have their own business and they're leading teams, but really working more so with the leader.
And how would people reach out to you? What sort of things could you offer? Do you have like certain programs, or would people need to come to you with a team together? How would that work?
Yeah. So yeah, you could, if you want to work one-on-one with me, there's a variety of ways to do that. I have a few different ways where I work with individuals, and where it could just be like a single session, or a more intensive or longer term container. Um, I have had individuals with like healing centers, for example, where they have considered bringing me in and working with their team through a workshop or a 1-day retreat type of experience.
Fabulous. That sounds super exciting.
Yeah, it is. I love that work. I love it.
So, is there anything that we've kind of missed that you would like to, bring up that we haven't covered in the so far? This idea of accessing the heart through New Earth, or anything else around New Earth that you would like to talk about today?
Yeah, let's see. Let me tune into that. So I have a couple of things. Um, when we're sort of thinking about being in that heart space, one of the things that I'm noticing is really being like experiencing life from that place of childlike wonder and curiosity, rather than judgment. And I know this is it takes intention and it takes presence to do that. And what I've noticed for me, my clients, is when we get curious about the experiences that we're having versus or even are curious about the response that we're having to the experiences that we're having, versus being like just stuck in that place of, this isn't fair, this is unwanted, but more from the sense of, gee, I wonder why this is showing up. It can clear the energy, right? It's actually amazing to me sometimes how quickly we can shift our own energy simply by bringing it back to, I wonder why this is happening, right? And sort of coming from that childlike, pure, innocent state. So that's just one thing I
I
want to
love that. And
put
I
out
just
there.
wondered whether, if you have, because people at home with all the challenges that we've been going through in the world, might be finding that they're kind of stuck in an emotion or a difficult place. And you've given one tool there, that kind of curiosity and connecting in with the wonder around us at nature, etc. I just wondered if you have any other kind of ideas or tools for people that perhaps are going through a hard time at the moment. Because something's just come to me. There's been a discussion on my Facebook page, actually. And I was speaking about how at the moment, a lot of people are feeling in a fog,
Mm,
feeling kind of a bit discombobulated. And part of that is the solar flares and all the energies that we've got
right.
coming in at the moment. And there was a bit of a discussion around a Facebook post. And I kind of mentioned, follow your heart. And the response was, even my heart feels foggy at the moment.
Mm,
And I think there's this sense of, because we are stepping into the unknown and it's not recognizable, and there's this kind of fogginess, how can we step out of that? Do you have any sort of ideas around that?
I do. I have a specific tool that can help. I've never sort of positioned it this way, but I do think that this tool can help with that. It's called Talk to Your Heart. It's an inner journey that includes a meditation and an assessment to help you tune into that heart energy, even if it feels a little foggy. Um, and really it allows you to give yourself that time and space to go within, to assess your energy and to attune to that highest truth in your heart. And what I want to also add to that is, um yeah, the energies have been intense. There's a lot going on with the solar flares and the planets and all of that. And it's not that you have to necessarily be tuned into it, but just aware that there are these cosmic energies, the macro energies that do have an effect on our own motivation levels, our own clarity. So really just be honoring whatever you're feeling, number one, right? And also, I know, this might be easier for some people than others, but really giving yourself what you need, whether that's rest, right? Whether it is like, what, I just I don't have it today. Like I need to take the day off. I need to just rest. I need to go and take a hot bath, or, really that coming back to that self-care, but being really radically honest with yourself of, gosh, how am I feeling right now? What do I need in this moment? And then honoring that. And the clarity piece, what I'll say to that too is, because I've been in that. I've been dancing with that cycle of like, hey, ready to go, I'm super clear, and then just like, I don't want to do anything. And so what I'm finding is when I do connect back into that source energy and really invite, like, show me what you want me to do. Am I supposed to be resting right now? And really just asking the questions, right? And then trusting that you're going to receive the answers some way, somehow, at some point, and not getting too attached to our own timelines and the way that we want to receive those answers.
I love that. I love that kind of checking in with ourselves and asking for what we need. And for each of us, that will be different. Um, I just wondered, what I'll do is I'll put your website below the video. I wondered if you've got a link also for the meditation. Is that something that we can put underneath so that people can access that meditation that you talked about? Because that sounds absolutely beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So the link is gailnowak.com/talk hyphen to hyphen your hyphen heart. So talk to your heart. But yeah, that would be great if you
Yeah, we'll
could
put it
include that
underneath the
underneath.
video as well, and also, your website as well. Um, Anything else before we finish off? I've absolutely loved talking with you today. It's been so powerful. And there was something that I wanted to pick up on from your last piece, but I like you, I've forgotten. So if you have anything else that's coming.
Yeah, I would just invite your viewers to really just reflect on and journal about what you might do differently to express and lead from your heart.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that because that's a way of really connecting in with the heart as well, just letting it flow, particularly writing in the morning and letting it flow. Um, that's really, really beautiful. Well, it's been absolutely delightful chatting with you today. I've really enjoyed the conversation. And if you at home have enjoyed it as well, please do hit the subscribe button so that you can hear some more of these wonderful New Earth podcasts. And thank you so much, Gayle, for your time today. It's been fabulous. Many blessings.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here, and thank you for the work that you're doing in the world.
And you likewise. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.